SABC News presentation.
Welcome, you're watching Interface here on SABC 3. My name is Tembi Samachele. Well, as you know, we're headed to the polls on the 7th of May to elect a new government. And as political parties jostle and scramble for your votes, how are they responding to issues relating to women? And if you're a woman, do you consider how a political party deals with issues like rape and domestic violence, child maintenance and the like? And if you're a male voter, how do you ensure that your political party comes with real solutions to these problems? Well, let's welcome our guests tonight here on Interface. Minister of Women, Children and People with Disabilities, Lulu Xingwane, joins us tonight, and DA Gauteng spokesperson, Rofilo Ntsege, as well as COPE General Secretary, Lindal Mafole. And as usual, you can always send us your comments on our Facebook page. It's Interface on SABC3, or you can tweet me at Tembi Samachele. Welcome to all three of you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Mam Lindal, let's ask you, issues like rape, child maintenance, domestic violence and the like, should they be treated by political parties as separate issues, or should they just be in the whole package? Are there issues that women, in particular, women voters, should consider when voting for a party?
Well, it is issues that women should consider when voting for political parties. However, I very strongly believe that these are issues actually that should not be party political issues. As women of South Africa, it's issues that as women we should be able to say, this is what we require of our political parties, this is what we require of our governments, and come together and ensure that all our parties are actually adhering to those issues, adhering to and following our views.
So let me ask you, how is your party then making sure that these issues are prioritized within the party, particularly around election time?
Well, as you know, our party is fairly young. It's 5 years old. And what we have done so far, we have ensured that in terms of our policies, it's in our constitution that we have a gender representation, 50% gender, minimum of 50% gender representation in decision-making structures. We obviously do not support issues such as race, rape. In fact, it seems that we fight against. But I would say that in terms of the policies of the party, there are a lot of things that we still need to look at as a political party, issues of the women and the economy, the role of women in the economy, and some of the other details issues that relate to gender equality.
Mama, how is the ANC, Minister, how is the ANC incorporating particularly these issues that we've mentioned to make sure that when we talk about gender representation, when we talk about women in parliament, it actually translates to the issues of women on the ground being dealt with?
Well, the ANC has a track record of ensuring women are empowered and that we realize gender equality. Since its birth already in 1912, we had women like Charlotte Maxeke and others who were in the ANC. We also have seen in the 50s women being elected in the national executive of the ANC. And in the past 20 years, we have seen how the ANC, which has come with a target first of 30% and later of 50%, has ensured women are prioritized in decision making, but also in parliament and in the cabinet. It is because of the ANC that we have 44% women in cabinet and 42% women in parliament.
How is that helping the woman that is dealing with rape, the woman that is dealing with domestic violence, the woman that is dealing with real issues on the ground?
That has helped because in the past 20 years, we have seen women ministers and women in parliament come up with laws that have empowered women. We have seen the campaign for 16 days for no violence against women and children. In the past 12 years has been escalated to the 365 days for no violence against women and children. And we have seen the ANC in the past 20 years pass a number of laws, including the Domestic Violence Act, the Sexual Offences Act, and the Maintenance Act to promote and
Okay.
protect the rights of women.
We'll talk a little bit in a moment about the implementation aspect of that, but I want to bring in Refilwe from the Democratic Alliance, and I want to ask you, how is your party ensuring that you deal with the issues that affect women in particular?
Well, if you look at, let's take rape, for example. We've been pushing for the sexual offences courts to be re-established. And we never understood why those were taken away. Because one of the things that disempowers women is when women actually cannot deal with rape and they're taken through the normal court systems. And in that time, then they wait long time for cases to go through. And if you look at it, they're actually in a way re-raped again while you're waiting to go through courts, because then the time is so long, the waiting period. So we say those are some of the examples in which we empower women. But within our own structures, women are trained. We don't discriminate and say men this and women this. We look at what the Constitution sets out, and we have built the party based on defending the Constitution. All human beings are equal, but we agree that women need to be pushed a little bit more to ensure that they reach the right places in society.
Do you highlight in your manifesto at all these issues so that when women are voting, they know what your stance is on each of these issues?
When we highlight the issues that plight women, in the sense that we talk to make sure that the police systems are working accordingly. So if a woman goes to report something like rape, she is treated properly and she is not further victimized when she goes to a police station. So those are the things that are highlighted in our manifestos if you go into detail. And we make sure that the systems work for women. And the education makes sense for women, and you start ensuring that girl children are not discriminated against.
Minister, why did you take away the sexual offences courts?
Well, the sexual offences courts had to be reviewed. We had to look at the impact they have and how can they be improved. And after a task team tabled their report to the Minister of Justice, they were reopened already. We have always supported the sexual offences courts so that they can cut the backlogs on sexual offences cases. We also have the family violence, child protection, and sexual offences units within the police in all 176 policing stations. We also have forensic social workers who are trained to deal with victims of violence, and other structures such as the forensic laboratories that have been revamped by the Ministry of Health and others. And therefore we are saying that the ANC is serious about fighting gender-based violence, but also promoting and empowering women. Unlike the DA, which is paying lip service literally, because when we look at the DA province, there are no women ministers or MECs in the province. It's mostly male, white MECs.
Refilwe, I'd like you to pick up on that one.
We do not see them implementing what they're talking about.
In a moment, but I want to bring you in, Mam Lindol, and I want to ask you, what the ANC has done, have they done enough? Or are you at least impressed with the basics that they've put in place?
No, I should say, Tembi, that as a South African woman, I'm extremely proud of what our country has been able to do, clearly under the leadership of the African National Congress in government. However, I want to first of all say that it is not only the ANC. I think it is very important to recognize the role of other women who are not necessarily in the ANC who've played their role. And I'm not talking about those of us who used to be in the ANC. I'm talking about people in civil society. There's a lot of work that is being done in that regard. But there is a lot that needs to be done. You know, just like in the area of education, we are doing well on quantity. We are not doing as well on quality.
On quality.
Yes.
And the implementation, that's the issue. After the break, I want to ask, is the Democratic Alliance paying lip service to the empowerment of women? To give us your thoughts on our Facebook page, it's Interface on SABC3, or you can tweet me at Tembisa Magele. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Well, on Interface tonight, we're asking the question, when you are going to the polls, do you consider how much attention a political party pays to issues relating to women? We're talking about issues like rape, like child maintenance, like domestic violence, femicide, and economic development, and the like. Do you consider those things? And if you do, how important a role do they play when you cast your vote? Do give us your thoughts. Interface on SABC 3 or at Tembisa Magele if you want to find us on Twitter. Now, before the break, we wanted to ask you, Refilo, the Minister was saying you as a political party, the Democratic Alliance, are paying lip service because you don't have that much women representation, particularly of MECs.
I have to answer as follows. I'm concerned when I hear these comments. One, we have a very sexist president who the ANC has been known to say South Africa is not even ready for a woman president. We clearly have a female leader and lots of leaders in our party. Secondly, when I was the national director for the DA, I was training people to become councillors in 150 wards. Of that, 70% were women. 69 of
Where are
those.
the women MECs?
No, not all of them are MECs.
Where are the females at MEC level?
We are still training people. You cannot just take people and plug them in positions and set them up for failure. That's how the DA believes in fit for purpose and training people accordingly so that when they take up those positions, they are also ready.
Minister, is your president sexist?
I don't think so. He has appointed 42 cabinet ministers who are women, and that is of his own accord because the Constitution gives him the power to do that. But the leader of the DA has not appointed a single woman MEC or minister in his cabinet. Over and above, why, if they are training women and capacitating women, why did they go out and buy Mampila Rampila? Why did they not take her or take Lindiwe Mazibuko if they really recognized women and empower black women?
Fair question. We'll get Refilo to answer in a moment.
Or are they using black faces to catch the votes?
That's a very good question for you, Refilwe. And we want to ask you, Minister, though, why did the ANC Women's League say that South Africa is not ready for a female president? Isn't that in itself sexist?
Well, I think South Africa is ready for a female president. It has been ready for a very long time.
But why did the Women's League say it's not?
Well, the Women's League can explain. But right now, I know for a fact that we have Nkosazana Zuma, who is leading the AU Commission, who is ANC. We have Phumzile Mlambo Ngcuka, who was the deputy president of the ANC government, who is leading UN Women internationally, globally. We have Geraldine Fraser-Mulekati, who was an ANC NEC member and minister, who is leading the African Development Bank. So women are ready and women are there.
Congress of the People. You've got the African National Congress being accused of sexism because the ANC Women's League says we're not ready for a female president. You've got the Democratic Alliance being accused of sexism because there aren't any women at MEC level and they're saying that they don't have candidates that are ready for that. How is the Congress of the People reflecting on both of these?
Well, Tembi, I think you'll remember when I started, I said the challenge that we have in South Africa is to take party politics out of the gender equality story. The reason why you can afford to have a president who talks about lying down and how that's beautiful, talking about our culture of the Venda women, being accused of being sexist for several reasons that I won't go into. The reasons why you can have the Democratic Alliance say, no, we're still training people and so on, is because the women of South Africa as a whole have not come together and say, this is what we expect of our political parties, of our governments, or as women together, because all of these things, all of these challenges, they tie all of us together. And therefore, as women, we need to be able to come together and put what I would call a minimum charter or something like that. That would be an expectation of all, of all the political parties and the different structures in society. That is the challenge that we have. And you are therefore able to get away, men, in fact, and women who don't really care for the advancement of women are able to get away with it because they then hide behind party politics.
Democratic Alliance, two things came up. One is the sexism issue and the other is the race card that you're using black people to try and front. How do you respond?
Okay. Let me explain the MMC situation in the Western Cape. You cannot say go and appoint women when women applications did not come through. Helen made her selection based on the pool of applicants that came through, and majority of that pool that came through was males. That's my first question. On the race card, DA is probably one of the most diverse parties in South Africa today. I represent the DA, and I definitely don't think I'm a white female.
But why did your leader go and get
I'm
Dr.
getting
Mampela
to
Rampela
that.
and not you?
I'm getting to that.
All right.
Mampela has a wealth of experience, which Lindiwe and myself do not have yet, because she's also somebody who comes out of the struggle era, and she is a well-known, I'm not saying Lindiwe and I are not well-known, but she's well-known and comes out of the struggle era. There was significance in her joining the DA because she of her age and attracting a different caliber of people that we wanted to attract to the Democratic Alliance. And another thing that I want to put to the table is when DA appoints public officers, we don't just appoint within the DA, because we are opening the party to say we want to attract more people who have same values as we have to the DA. That's why when we appoint, we cast the net open. We don't just say only DA members can apply.
Okay, let's look at some of the statistics. Gender-based violence in Gauteng alone, let's just take this province. 51% of women say that they've experienced some sort of violence from their intimate partners. You've got 78% of men saying they have been perpetrators of violence of some kind in Gauteng alone. Now, those are very scary and staggering statistics. What are your parties doing about this? Let's start with the ANC.
First and foremost, I think I want to say that gender-based violence is a societal issue. It's not a party issue. As Lindole has said, it's not a government issue. All of us must ask the question, what has gone wrong with our society? What has gone wrong in our country? And all of us must work together, starting with mothers, how we bring up our children, both boys and girls at home, our teachers at school, but also our religious leaders in our congregations. How do we deal with this issue? As far as the government is concerned, we have played a very important role. As far as the ANC is concerned, we have ensured that the police are trained, the magistrates are trained, the prosecutors are trained to be aware and to be able to deal with these issues. And we have raised awareness in our communities with different campaigns that we have raised, also working with NGOs, with women's organizations, even with men's organizations, such as Sonke Gender Justice, Brothers for Life.
Just speaking
and so
about
on.
the training that you're talking about, Minister, there's research that came through from Twaranang saying that actually those magistrates are not trained, that the problem is at that level. The police officers are not trained enough.
Well, the NGO or the community must say what must be done, because the Department of Police, for instance, has come up front. They have reviewed the curriculum for training police officers. The Department of Justice is also doing the same. So if there still is a problem,
They
we
must
must
come
hear
to
what
you
the problem,
and
they
talk
must
to you
come
about
in.
it.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to take another short break. And when we come back, I really do want to know from these political parties, what more needs to be done? What do you think needs to be done to really deal with these issues once and for all? To give us your thoughts, interface on SABC3 or at Tembisa Magele if you want to hit me up on Twitter. Well, we are wrapping up our discussion on women and how women are supposed to be voting in these elections. And if you're a man, how you think the issues relating to women should be catered for in the different political parties. To give us your thoughts, we do welcome them. Lots of thoughts coming through on our Facebook page already. And Gugun Ngamo says, I believe the ANC-led government has done a remarkable duty in uplifting the status of women in our society. Marlene Nordman says, where are the temporary shelters for these abused women? Most often than not, retracting a case is because of the fact that a woman depends on the abuser financially, and the political parties are not doing enough about that. And Nomangwane Chabalala says, voting or not, politics will never provide solutions unless women themselves stand up on the ground. And that goes back to the point that was made earlier. But I just want to ask you, Lindo, when you look at the issues that or the solutions that have been provided so far, where are the gaps, and what, as the Congress of the People, do you think needs to be done to try and improve on these issues? on the solutions for these issues?
Well, the gaps are many, and I think they're systemic. They're in the system as a whole, and it's things that we would need to look at when we're looking at government and governance, not just in South Africa. Actually, it's a global issue. But what is it that we need to do? It is important, I think, that every South African, but especially women, understand the Constitution and what the Constitution provides for. When the Constitution talks about your rights as a human being, the rights of a child, the rights of a woman, the rights of a young person, the issues related to food and all of that, you need to be able to link those constitutional rights and responsibilities to governance. You need to be able to link those rights and responsibilities that are in the Constitution and the protection of the Constitution to the political parties and how they are advancing or not advancing the rights that are entrenched in the Constitution. Because when we do that, then we do away with the challenges that we have today, that we've got a myriad of policies. We've got laws, we've got policies, but you are unable to implement them because of societal issues, because of systemic things in terms of governance, the functioning of governance, non-delivery, issues of corruption and all that. All of those things are actually linked to understanding your rights and, above all, your right and responsibility to vote and to exercise your mind when you are voting and voting for the future.
We see this often. I mean, we saw it recently where we saw the different political parties demonstrating outside the court because there was a perpetrator that they wanted a very heavy sentence for. And we see this a lot of the times where political parties are out there in terms of marching in the streets and trying to bring attention in that way. But what more can be done beyond that to make sure that the issues themselves are dealt with, and it's not just party politicking and appearing to support victims at a time of need?
Okay. South Africa has great policies. I think the implementation of these policies needs to be perfected and improved. We also need to look at what Mayor said is the Constitution is great, but to adapt it to everyday woman who is not necessarily literate like myself, so she understands what you mean by saying she has rights. Secondly, I'd like to bring a case of we need to better train the police. I'll give you a case in point, and I always use myself. When I was going through my divorce, I went to the police to say, I've now had this person violated a protection order of financial abuse. The police didn't know how to implement that. So the training has to happen on the ground so that the woman is better supported, so she feels empowered.
Minister, why are we still having implementation issues in 2014? Couldn't we at least have the basics in place?
Well, I think we have the basics in place because we have all the laws that are out there. We have just tabled in Parliament the Women Empowerment and Gender Equality Bill.
But what about the implementation aspect? Because that's what they are critiquing.
Which will assist us to implement and also to ensure that the laws that have been passed empower women already. So also I want to say that them as public representatives have an important role to play to see to it that ministers, officials, departments implement the programs and policies of government. But I also have a question to Refilwe. Is the DA a democratic organization? Why do people apply and then they are interviewed by a few? I belong to an organization where the masses of the people in the branches elect their leaders. I am sitting in the ANC list because the branches of the ANC elected me, not someone that is unknown to them, that comes from maybe Baragwanath Hospital and has been interviewed by Mrs. Zil and her friends, and then they decide. That is the one who's supposed to be the leader of the people.
Refilwe?
So I have a
beg to differ.
problem.
I'm a councillor as well, Mr. Minister. And in Davidton, when the 2011 elections erupted, there was uproar within the ANC itself because members of the ANC were saying people were being basically put through the line, yet they'd worked themselves up within the branches. The DA does interviewing because we just want to make sure that our candidates that go through are fit for purpose and understand what is expected of them as public reps when they take up office.
Well,
because you do not want to
I
put people
agree
in a
that
situation where you're actually setting them up for failure.
I agree that there are problems in the ANC with lists and so on. Everybody wants to be in the list. But when there were problems of corruption, of abuse of power, Nkosazana Zuma was asked by the NEC of the ANC to go and investigate all those cases, and those cases were addressed.
Okay.
Unlike in the DA, just a club of a few elite are the ones that decide who sits, was sitting with members of parliament of the DA who are depressed right now because they don't know how they were pushed out of the list.
Okay, let's
Now, I
get
just
a
want
view
to
from
say
Co.
something to that, probably to remind the viewers that the ANC is a 100-year-old organization and it's a liberation movement. We are a political party, the DA is a political party. We do our systems differently. In the Congress of the People, you actually declare your availability and readiness to serve, whether it is for the leadership of the party or it is for the public representatives. And the branches, they have an option to nominate, but the vast majority of our people, in fact, have declared. In fact, often you'll find that even by the time somebody is nominated, they have declared, because we are also saying, and then they go through a process more or less similar to the DA, but we have an independent electoral college.
All right, your response?
I'd like to respond to the minister. Yes, we have people that serve on the interview panel, but please remember that Helen herself is elected within the DA, but either DA members. So even the interview panel is elected. When I got elected onto the MPL list for the coming elections, I had 43 people interviewing me, representing each constituency in the province.
Ladies,
And
this
these
is
are
fascinating.
grassroots members of the party in branch levels.
All right, this is fascinating. Minister, I would have loved to give you a chance to respond to that as well, but we've got to leave it there. Unfortunately, we'll run out of time, but we do continue this conversation on Facebook, Interface on SABC3, and also on Twitter at Tembisa Magele. For now, good night.